We welcome you to another episode. I just wanted to be weird for a second.
Okay.
Welcome to our Abide in Me and chapter 17 of Matthew. We are hanging out for a few minutes, and so just wanted to just dive right in. We're not going to beat around the bush today and mess around too much. We're just going to get into this and get going. We've got a student spotlight coming up tonight with an interview of a student, so we're excited for that. But what did you get out of chapter 17? We're getting more into we're headed to the cross.
Yeah.
And so what are things looking like from what you were reading tonight?
Yeah, I think the piece that jumped out to me, and I think maybe part of it is because of, it jumped out to one of us a couple days ago. Jesus and his disciples are talking, and his disciples were not able to heal somebody. And Jesus says, "For truly I tell you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you." So I just thought about how tiny a mustard seed is and how gigantic a mountain is. Yeah. And that if our faith is even just that much, the size of like a tip of a pencil, how great of things that we can do that. And Jesus says nothing would be impossible if we have even that much faith. So I think just thinking about things that are going on in our world, how it's easy to have doubt and fear, that all we need is faith that's so tiny, the size of a seed.
And then the mountains start moving.
Yeah, and then things start changing. And I think we see that when we have one small act of kindness or one small kind word that, it really can make a ripple effect. But that's all the faith that Jesus tells us that we need is, and then we can do anything. So I think it was that just struck me today as being encouraging that that's all we need is just that tiny little bit of faith.
Yeah. I agree with that full on.
Yeah.
The piece that stuck out to me was in verse 6 when Jesus was telling his disciples, this was the transfiguration, the disciples put their faces to the ground in fear, and they use the word terrified. And for me, terrified is another level of fear, right?
Yeah.
Like you're scared and then you're terrified. Like it takes you to that place. And what I saw is again, disciples scared in the midst of their Savior, right? In the midst of the one who has shown them everything, and that he can take care of the winds and the seas and any ills, that they entered into a moment of being scared. And Jesus again has to pull them up in a sense and say, "Do not be afraid." Like, I'm with you. Do not be afraid. You're okay. You're in the presence of God. And yes, that is all inspiring and just so overwhelming. But don't be afraid. And I think that trickles down later in the chapter when the disciples tried to heal that child, and they couldn't. And they pull Jesus to the side, and Jesus almost gets frustrated with just things, and they pull Jesus to the side later and they say, "Jesus, why could we not have healed her? Like, you had given us power to do things, and we had done things, but why could we not have healed her?" And he said, "Because you had such little faith." Yeah. Your faith was less than the mustard seed. And that is why you could not heal her. And so it just reminds me that our faith doesn't have to be the size of a mountain.
Mm-mm.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to do all these things. But part of faith is trust, and trusting in God. And I think that there are many instances of places we've read earlier in Matthew where the people who were more removed from Jesus had more faith, who trusted more. And so it reminds me that in being part of the church and working through the church and ministering to those in and out of the church, that I need to be extra vigilant, that I don't become complacent and just take Jesus for granted.
Yeah.
Or just not trust and fall into this pattern of that.
Well, and I think something else about this, don't be afraid. I think hearing that from Jesus, that he told people that, and I don't remember if it's in Matthew or in one of the birth stories, the angel says, don't be afraid, that there's this just like continued encouragement from God of like, keep just taking one step, one step, one step. You don't have to be afraid. Just keep going.
It's
keep living, or keep having faith.
Right. It's kind of like Peter when he got out in the water. It was just one step at a time in walking in faith. And he got about 2 steps in.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of, right? This notion, it reminds me of Fear Not by Ellie Holcomb.
Yeah.
She has this children's CD that our boys love. She has 2 right now. We have them both. But in her CD, she talks about fear not, for I think I'm with you. I've called you by name. You are mine.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good reminder to us that God has called each one of us by name. He's known us from the beginning, and we are His. And He is there with us, walking through things. And so, fear not in the midst of that. That doesn't mean we're still not going to be scared.
Yeah.
It still doesn't mean we're not going to doubt and have hard places and really call out to God and say, what in the world? But in the midst of that, we can trust that God is there.
Yeah.
And that God is in the midst with us. And even if the answers don't come the way we're looking for them. So, chapter 17 in the books. We've done this early.
I know. Our kids are in bed. Can't believe it.
Holla.
We'll definitely post on here if you have thoughts about what chapter 17 means to you. And then tomorrow we'll be in chapter 18.
The 1-8. So we're looking forward to that. We hope you'll join us again about the same time, same place. We usually try to get on around 8 or so. But we hope that you get something out of this. We're walking this through Easter. And so we hope that you do the same with us throughout. And we'll see you next time.
Have a good night, y'all.
Cool. Bye, guys.